We are here because we are dedicated to helping the entire CrossFit community. Determined to elevate coaches, box owners, athletes, and everything in between, we believe that this mission will begin right here, right now. While this time and this goal begins with you, our hope is that you take this fire ignited within you and weave it into your own life with the same unrelenting passion to give those you have the privilege of coming in contact with the best hour of their day.
Welcome back, best hour heads. Can I say that?
You can say whatever you want, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, best hour heads is like deadheads.
Oh, got it. You're talking about our following, our groupies, if you will.
Yeah, groupies. I don't know about that. But I was thinking about this, Fern. You and I have recently talked about, hey, we're going to go away together, just the families, for something fun.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
By the way, I do remember that. It was, what do you mean do I remember that? It was my idea. Jess was just texting me, like, we're doing a trip in April, and then we're doing one for a week. So in May for Cinco de Mayo.
We go to Mexico?
We're going as close as you can get to Mexico without going to Mexico.
Where's it? Where's that? Texas? You're going like this?
Yeah, South Padre. I've got a buddy who lives down there. He lives in a just offensively large house on the beach, and he's been ribbing me for a long time about going down there. So we're going down there. Long story short, he's a doctor. He lives down there, but his mom. So Cinco de Mayo, he was a college buddy of mine. Cinco de Mayo was always like our thing for whatever reason. We just like to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. But then his mom passed away on Cinco de Mayo. Man, I forgot how many years ago, but it's been a long time. So he does like a Cinco de Mayo thing every year, like in her honor. But then this year, Jess and I, and then Jess, he and I and Jess met at the same time, like 22 years ago. So we're going to go down there and spend the week with him and his wife and with no kids. So this will be the longest vacation we've taken since our honeymoon.
Who watches the kids when you're gone? One of your parents?
I mean, they're pretty self-sustaining. I think Logan can watch Chappie at this point. He wears a helmet everywhere now, so he's safe. Yeah.
Because I was actually thinking about it today. We had our doula over to just visit after the baby, and she was like, "So, do you want me to like watch?" I was like, "Yeah, can we leave?" And Roz is like, "I'm not ready to leave." I'm like, "When do you? It's been 3 weeks. Like, when do we get to leave this thing?"
Oh, dude, it'll probably 6 months
before I get
the first. Well, no, you can leave whenever you want. She's not going to feel comfortable leaving the baby for a long time.
Yeah, I was way, in a different mindset than her about that. I was like, yeah.
So with our second one, I mean, with Logan, we didn't leave forever just because that was a different scenario. But even with Chappie, he was born in February. And then our first trip away from him, which was even still hard for her, was the affiliate gathering in Canada in September.
That's right. You guys, I didn't even think about that. You were there without the babies.
Yeah.
That was the first time we're all together. So anyway, here's what I'm thinking. Assuming the world opens back up, assuming concerts happen again, you, Jess, me, Roz probably won't want to go, but I'll invite her. Dave Matthews Band, 3 nights at the Gorge in Washington. It's been kind of my dream to go there. And I got another
3 consecutive nights. He plays all 3 nights.
Typically the Gorge is like the culmination, the final stop of the summer tour. And it's been something I've wanted to do since I was like 18.
We're big Dave Matthews fans. Like, that's one of the few concerts here that will like spring and get like box seats and close up and do like the VIP passes and stuff like that, because he crushes in Virginia Beach.
Oh,
they play they play way past curfew. They play all the good shit.
So let's do it.
Good. All right,
cool. So you guys hear it. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know that there's going to be a summer tour this year, but if there is,
probably not. Washington State, right? Not Washington D.C. Yeah. Okay.
No, State. Yeah. So anyway,
DC's never opening up.
Let's talk about today's topic at hand. This was something that came up because, oftentimes on my personal Instagram, I'll just say, hey, who's got some questions? And I like to answer them. A lot of times I'll just DM back and forth or put it up in a story. But one of the questions that I get asked often, and this time I just felt like, hey, let's dig into it. Recently talked about it in our coaches development group, but I figured we can talk about it on the podcast as well. And that's the topic of imposter syndrome. So what do you first think about when you hear that term imposter syndrome, Fern?
This is a weird question because like I kind of have like hindsight on this, but my first thing is most people are not aware that they have it.
Interesting. So how does that usually manifest itself then? If I don't know I have imposter syndrome, what does that look like?
So I think the most common form of we see this all the time. The most common form of imposter syndrome, specifically in the CrossFit affiliate owner space, is this idea that they shouldn't be making money. They're like, they start to see some success and it doesn't feel right. I shouldn't be doing this. I don't belong here. This isn't appropriate. Anybody who's ever kind of been through this ringer that there are some exceptions, people who've come from a previous business background and they're to some degree shielded from this. But even in that scenario, the benevolence of CrossFit and the sheer romance that people have with it causes them to be irrational. So I've seen it there as well. So that is where I see it the most, is they feel like an imposter being a successful box owner.
You know what? I hadn't even looked at it from that vantage point. I was only looking at it from the coach's eye, if you will. But I do agree with you. I think when I first opened the box in 2007, it wasn't, probably till 2008 or 9 where I felt like a business owner. But a lot of that was like, I'm just a coach that opened a business. Like you don't stop and think, no. You're a business owner. And not only are you a business owner, you're a successful one. And because of that, you deserve to make money.
It's most people only recognize it when they get to a breaking point. That's the bad part about it, is like very few people recognize it prior to and can break that cycle of thought before they get to a bad space. So usually this manifests itself when like people are like at the bottom and they're just like, oh, I have this block on whatever it be, like making money or being successful, like whatever that means for you, or not coaching any classes, like whatever that, like, so I didn't have imposter syndrome, but like this is the first time in 12 years that I will not coach any classes
in a month.
In one, yeah, for this full month, I will not coach any classes.
Right. So I remember doing that myself, thinking like, I've made it. Like, this is great. Like, I own a business and I can work on it versus in it. How does that make you feel as a box owner? You've been open, coming up on, 10 years now. How does that make you? 12 years.
We just had an 11-year anniversary. And
this is the first time in 12 years you've taken yourself off this calendar for a full month.
Well, and this is interesting.
You may get called in, like, look, Lindsay's gonna have a bad hair day.
I'm standby. So no, I got pushed out.
That's a good problem.
Yeah,
right?
I was talking to Denise Thomas the other day. She's like, "How are things going?" I was like, "I got pushed out of coaching in my own gym," and she was like, "What?" And I was like, "No, I was like, I was in the way. Like, I have coaches that want to coach more. It was taking up space." And this idea that I need to be on the floor and nobody can do it better than me is, I've been around long enough to know that it's just not true.
Well, and not to mention, while you have a great coaching staff and you have former box owners on your staff, there are things that only you can do. And it doesn't make sense for you to be taking your work hours and coaching when you have phenomenal coaches, not just Cassidy and Lindsay, but quite a few other great coaches, and they can do that well.
Right.
Some may say better than you, and you could be working on other things.
I mean, quite frankly, let's hope so. Let's hope that they are better than me. Maybe not right now, but you could. I mean, it's debatable. like that. It's not a foregone conclusion that one is better than the other. Like we each have our own unique skill. So, but two other coaches, we'll be on to have 5 level 3 coaches by the end of this year.
And right now you have 3, correct?
Right now we have 3, and then whenever the level 4, like we would pretty quickly have 3 level 4 coaches. But
well, you're making some bold assumptions there. Most importantly, that you would pass.
Oh, I would pass. Yeah, flying colors. Yeah, because I still coach. I'm still in the affiliate. You could not pass. So like the better happened to you was that they were gifted you that years ago.
I'm on paternity leave. I still coach. I'm on paternity leave.
Right. So, but yeah, that is so more valuable, right? So me getting on the floor and coaching, or me still interacting with members, hopping into more classes, and then giving 15 to 20 coach evals. Right,
because you while Cassidy and Lindsay can probably give coach evals, they're probably the only 2. But you also know what you're looking for and can help bring up the coaching level the best.
But they want it too, right? So like everybody needs to be managed, right? We've talked about this before, this idea that like people are like, I'm micromanaging. I'm like, well, it may be micromanaging, or it might just be managing. People don't want to be managed, right? Like that's a separate discussion. But they want feedback as well. But like even the best coaches can fall into like weird little ruts where they, your classes run over, or you're talking too much, or you didn't cover what you're supposed to. You forgot to give announcements. Like that's really easy to do. I don't give a shit how good you are. Like that, if to run the perfect class is incredibly difficult.
I asked for advice, not advice. I asked for feedback, but I guess advice as well. When I coach, and the owner of the box I coach at is a level 3, but there's a level 2 and a level 1. I always ask for some feedback. Hey, what'd you like about that? What could I have done better? Yeah. So I think if you're coaching, period, you want that feedback. Let's look at it from a different perspective. I think it's important to look at it from that box owner perspective, but I was really expecting you to think about it from the coach's perspective.
Got it.
And hey, you can have imposter syndrome anywhere in life, so it's not limited to only coaching. But I think for most of our listeners, it's not so much only when they run their box, because we have plenty of just at level 1 and level 2 trainers, but also just in general when it comes to coaching. Did you ever feel it yourself, or were you just so arrogant and cocky when you started coaching that you were like, I'm the best?
Probably the latter.
I wasn't.
So, this is from a coaching standpoint, not really. There probably maybe some. I don't know. Like even when I was like going through the process for seminar staff, it wasn't like I didn't feel like I honestly, with the exception of like fucking it up and thinking I've like had forfeited a good opportunity, like I didn't feel like I shouldn't be there.
Did you feel like that during your internship?
What?
You felt as if you fucked it up?
Yeah, when I bobbled the progressions, I absolutely felt like I fucked it up.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, well, Donnie Forbes reminds me on a regular occasion. It's just a running joke, which that humility will stay with me forever, so that is a good thing, right? And I bounced back and I made it, and it worked out. But I was from a coaching standpoint, I was fortunate. Like I grew up in the world of coaching. Like from the age of 5, I was watching people coach things. Like my entire life has been consumed with being directly adjacent or underneath somebody coaching.
Primarily, your father was a basketball
well,
coach,
even
right?
Before that, yeah. But I mean, like I always had coaches in sport, and then I had, I was like, but even when I wasn't playing for my dad, I was in the locker room with the teams, whether it was when he was like in the dugout so unique scenario. So in my high school class, this is a really weird, unique scenario. The football coach, the baseball coach, and the basketball coach, all 3 of their sons were in the same class. So me and 2 of my friends, our fathers were like the big 3 coaches at the high school.
Oh, you were those kids.
Right. Yeah, I was that. Yeah, we were those kids. So we all grew up and our dads coached across sports in some of those scenarios too. But so we were all like, I was in the football locker room, I was in the baseball dugout, I was in the basketball locker room. So I was always around coaching and at practice and all that other stuff. So I was kind of handed a lot of these skills just by proxy. Like I was just there.
When you were young,
and then I went to a lot of camps and I taught kids at an early age, stuff like that.
well, when you were young in those dugouts and watching your father and the other coaches, what were a few things that you thought as you watched them that made a good coach?
Ooh, I didn't realize those at first. That's not as a young kid what I was digesting. I was digesting the players and their reactions to the coaches. So like I wasn't even like, my brain probably wasn't developed enough to really be attached to the coach. You just kind of either liked the coach or you didn't. But you're too young to know why. Like you're not comprehending all of that stuff.
Right.
What I was always attuned to was how did the players react to the coaches? Like that is what I was completely dialed into. And then later was able to piece together like why certain players reacted to certain coaches in certain ways.
You were noticing that as a kid?
I don't know why, but yeah. It's mostly because I idolized the players, like in all those high school guys. And I still know most of their names. I was like a little kid, like 5, 6, 7 years old. But those were my idols at that point. Like, yeah, I was like the MJs of the world, but like was really like Adrian Dunn and Marvell Jackson and like all these guys who like, those guys were like, they were like gods to me. So like I watched everything that they did. And I would watch the interaction and I would see the communication and I would see the struggle and the tension and then the breakthrough, and then they would go out and they would do. So like, that's what I don't know if that's weird or not, but like, that's what I saw.
No, I think that's similar, in the wrestling room for me. The coach is one thing, but you're looking up to the kids. And it's always funny too. Like I remember being a freshman on the wrestling team, and to me, the 10th graders were like gods and older and, et cetera. And then you're looking up to them. And then a year later, you're like, I'm not like that. I'm not this mature human being. And now all of a sudden they're and the seniors, when you're a freshman, are like, who are these adults?
Right.
And you really do look up to them. And then by the time you're a senior, you don't feel like you're as mature and like they were.
Yeah,
and that's part of that is that imposter syndrome, right? I grew up to be captain of the wrestling team, but I never felt like Craig Glenn, who was the captain of the wrestling team when I still remember his name. I haven't seen him in 20 years, but he was my idol back then.
Right. I think I will attribute this to I think I was parented very well in many ways, and I think there's a lot of things that were done intentionally that I was not aware of that allowed me to bypass imposter syndrome as a player. Like I always felt like I should have been there and I deserved to have been there and I deserved to be there. And quite frankly, I was angry if I wasn't there. Right. So like, you're talking about like you looked at seniors as gods. Well, I was playing varsity summer leagues in middle school.
Look at you, just humble bragging.
No, but my point was like I was placed there on purpose because
you were good. Because you're the best.
Good. I was good. However, but like it was only like it wasn't like all the time. It wasn't overdone. My dad was never like, over the top with adoration towards me. It was minimal effective dose to put me in the mix, to learn something, to be hungry, and then remove me so that I would want to be there again. So it was never like, you're great, you're the best. Like that was not our relationship at all. It was not all pats on the back. It was mostly just like, hey, if you want to be good, I'm going to stick you in here. Don't fuck it up. And I would get in there and kind of survive. And then, and even like in early middle school, like I would go to LSU and in the summer leagues, and I would like wait around for hours to get like one pickup game in there. And so that from a player standpoint, I never really kind of felt the imposter syndrome maybe until college. And that was brief, where it's just like, okay, I should be here.
Deserve to be here. And, and let's swing it and relate it to coaching. I think a lot of coaches can relate it to this athleticism aspect of it. You go take your level 1 or you start coaching somewhere, and a lot of times you're not the best athlete at the box. For many, you are. Even for me, 2007, yeah, I was the best, but by 2008, I no longer was. And I think for a lot of people listening, they have that imposter syndrome. I kind of came up with a list of things that they should remember, rely on, think about when they're feeling that way. I'd be interested in hearing your perspective on these things. So
so like, before you go there, I'm really interested in to hear it. Like, I guess I look at it a little bit differently, right? Like, I get why people have that. But again, like, just my upbringing and my experiences led me to not really comprehend that, because if you're playing sports, like, the basketball coach is not the best player. So I always looked at, or even the football coach or whatever, like, I always looked at, like, the coach is not the best person.
Well, that's what we're going to get to. That's
Okay.
on the list for sure.
Yeah.
So when I hear of other people having imposter syndrome as coaches primarily, the first thing I try to remind them, so I have 6 things. 6 things. I think you could add more. I think a lot of them are somewhat redundant, but if you think about these things, and rule number 1 to overcoming imposter syndrome is remember that you know more.
Right.
So let's keep it to CrossFit for a moment. Chances are, if you're coaching, you should have at least, at a minimum, taken and passed the level 1 certificate course, right? There's probably very few people at your box that have their level 1 that aren't on your coaching staff. Meaning, if you coach 20 people in this next class, 0 of them probably have their level 1, or else they'd be coaching as well. So when someone's giving you grief, when you feel like you're not making headway with them, or you're just kind of getting that look, remember, hey, I know more than this person. I've been through the What is CrossFit lecture. I watched the squat lecture. I've taken the squat breakout. I went through the muscle up progression. I know more than these people. And that goes
I studied for this test.
Yeah, I passed this, 55 question or whatever, how many question test, and passed. You don't know more than me. And I think that's important to remember, especially when it's some dude or gal that's fitter than you, maybe a little. Like, here's a great example. I can make any games athlete move better. 100%, as you could, as can many level 1, level 2 trainers, level 3 trainers, level 4 coaches. They're way fitter than us. But I can probably notice, hey, their knees are coming in. I mean, I judged Hepner at the 2020 games. There were definitely times I could have gotten him to move better. I wasn't my job then. It was to judge. And I'm sure, who did you judge? You judged Smith, right? Chandler Smith?
For the regional, or for the qualifier?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chandler Smith.
Right. There are probably times where you could be like, hey, dude, if you squeezed your butt a little more, this clean would be easier, or your chest to bars would be better. So number 1, remember you know more.
He has a narrow squat stance.
Yeah, take your feet a little wider, dude.
I like Chandler. Chandler's a good dude.
Hey, dude, have you thought about taking your feet wider on these squats? What do you think?
You'll be able to front squat 405, bro.
Yeah, you could have hit that. Pick that back up and take your feet wider. Let me see what you got here. So what do you think about that? That's my, and I would say these are in no particular order, but I kind of go from top to bottom. So remember, you know more. Number 2, remembering you don't have to be fitter. And this is kind of that coach analysis, right? I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, MMA guy. There's a guy named John Danaher. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he trains out of New York City under Renzo Gracie, and he's got a team called the Danaher Death Squad. And they are like the team to beat in jiu-jitsu. Now, you have to keep in mind about this John Danaher guy is that he's so banged up, he can't even roll anymore. Meaning he can't, train jiu-jitsu. But everyone trusts him. Everyone listens to him. And his team is, the best of the best in the jiu-jitsu world. And I'm sure you can make that same analogy for any sport, be it basketball, football, baseball. Oftentimes the manager or coach played, but they weren't necessarily a great player. Or if they were, they're no longer great, but the team listens to them. The example that I hear a lot, I don't watch any sports at all other than MMA.
We know.
Is Bill Belichick. He coaches, I believe, baseball. And what is he? Who's he coach? The Braves? Who does he coach?
Oh, just keep going. Yeah, I want everybody to soak this up that Bill Belichick coaches the Braves. Go ahead.
The Atlanta Braves. I don't know
Yeah.
if he played baseball before coaching.
He
but
definitely
I know
didn't play baseball.
But I know he gets a lot of respect as a great coach. Is that
Okay,
true?
we're gonna have a teaching moment here. Bill Belichick did not. He may have played baseball. I'm not going to speak out of turn, but he did not coach baseball. He coached football. His father coached at the Naval Academy. Oddly enough.
Really? Did he coach you?
No, I did not play football.
Football.
Because he coached football, and then he still does coach for the New England Patriots, and they traded
Bill Belichick.
Yeah, and then they traded Tom Brady or released him, at which point that was the worst decision they ever made because he promptly won a Super Bowl upon going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
But the point being, no one recognizes Bill Belichick for his football playing. They recognize him for his coaching. Right. So point is, because you hear this a lot, whether it's you see it with some people that are overweight. The example I always give is, to this day, I struggle with strict muscle ups. Like, I can do one.
They're not pretty.
But they're not pretty. There's probably a little more hip action than there should be to be considered strict.
But I can struggle with the air squat, to be honest with you.
But I can coach the hell out of a strict muscle up. And I've probably gotten in my coaching career, I would say I must be closing in on 100 people at a minimum to get their first strict muscle up. I can't necessarily do it. In fact, the reason I can coach it so well is because I do struggle with it. And I understand the false grip, but I understand the need to, pull to your sternum and not your chest. And I understand the need to have an aggressive sit up in the muscle up. The story I tell is my old buddy, Matt Franco, who I believe is in Cali now. He came into Albany CrossFit 2008, threw down like a 3-minute Fran, to the point that we filmed it thinking he would break the world record, had muscle ups on day one, but couldn't coach anyone to get their first muscle up. In fact, I talk about it in my book, available on Amazon and besthouroftheirday.com, that the fact that he had muscle ups on day one made him a shitty muscle up coach, where I could coach muscle ups all day because I was struggling with it. So you don't have to be fitter, and use that journey. You've lost 100 pounds, tell that story. Most likely, the person you're coaching will never understand what that means. They'll never understand the struggle, the work, the effort, the commitment you made to lose those 100 pounds. Be proud of that, even if that means you don't have muscle ups. Let's go to number 3. Number 3, which ties into that number 2, is work your weakness. Okay, you don't have muscle ups. I want to see you in the corner doing the level 1 progression. You have an immature squat. I want to see you facing that wall and doing squat therapy. What's your opinion on that?
You're talking about an athlete right now, though.
I'm talking about the coach.
Yeah, you work your weaknesses, but your weaknesses kind of shift, right? Because a weakness as an athlete doesn't necessarily translate as a weakness as a coach. So
no, but I'm
you have
saying
to figure out. Right.
If you struggle, you're not the fittest. Show your athletes that you're leading by example.
Okay. Yes, that I agree with. Yeah. So when you say work your weaknesses, that's different than leading by example.
Cool. Well, we can. Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, they're in line, but not necessarily the same thing. And I know how I would think about it. But yeah, I agree with
you. Because here's the other place you have to do that. Hey, I eat right. Like I'm eating meats, vegetables, nuts, seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. That's why I can talk about this, right? You may not have a 6-pack like the dude over in the corner, but if you're doing it right, you also know, going back to number 1, I may be on my journey still. I may be losing weight. I may not be as fit as you, but I promise you, if you did this, you would get better. And that's also, something to remember, not on the list, but I think you see this a lot with the athletes with an ego. Hey, I'm fitter than this coach. Why do I need to listen to him? Because you could be better.
Right, because you're not the fittest.
Yeah, and we say that to our affiliates that we work with, that maybe are content. Like, oh, I made this much money this month. Cool. Do you want to make $3,000 more than that? Rather, you shouldn't rest on your laurels and be content anywhere in life. Challenge yourself to get better. And that's, as a coach, part of what you bring out. So let's go. Let me repeat, because maybe people are taking notes on this episode. That's how great it is. Remember, you know more. You don't have to be the fittest. Work on your weakness and lead by example. Number 4, do it for the right reasons. And what I mean by that is, if I'm coaching anyone in this room and I truly go up to you because I think I can make you better, I think I can make you more efficient, I think I can keep you safer, I think I can help you shave 3 seconds off, do that with confidence because you know you're doing it for the right reasons.
This bleeds over into box ownership as well. And this is one of the things that we talk to people about. Like, most of them struggle with sales. And it's just like, I don't want to be salesy. I'm like, don't fucking be salesy. But I'm like, do you believe that CrossFit will change their life? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, do you believe that you care about this person so much that you would walk them through this journey? They're like, yes. And I'm like, then tell them that and sell them the membership. And they're like, I never thought about it like that. I'm like, I know, discussing it right now.
Yeah, but we talk about it all the time. We're solving problems. We're making these people better. We're making their life better. And a great drill that you and I work our affiliates through is the heaven and hell drill. And that, you could tie it in here on the affiliate level. It works really well when you have like a new person come in and you're like, remember why they're coming in, because they're tired. They don't feel great. Their significant other isn't looking at them with the same, loving eyes than they once did. They can't bend down to pick up their kids. They're miserable at work every day. They're taking blood pressure medication. That's the hell they're living in. And you have this prescription for heaven, which is, your significant other is attracted to you again. You come off this medication, you can have more energy to take care of your kids. You have to remind yourself of that. You have to remind yourself that.
I was listening to, or no, what did I see this the other day? Oh, Sevon posted something about this there, or somebody reposted it, and he was just like, hey, just a reminder, affiliates, you still have the solution to the world's most vexing problem. And I was just like, fuck yeah, that's right. We do. That's right. We absolutely
forget about
do.
that.
Right.
And whether, really, we're just taking a macro view of this, but if you're a coach and hey, I'm doing this for the right reasons to make this person better, and this is going to tie into number 6 when we get to it, but just know that you should be approaching them with that confidence. I saw his knees go in. Yes, this dude squats 150 pounds more than me, but it could be 155. It could be 160 pounds more than me. And most importantly, potentially I'm saving him from an injury one day when his knees come crashing in and he's got 405 on his back.
Just a basic strategy that I would like before I was just more confident with it. When I would just if you have an athlete like that who's fitter than you or whatever, and insert like whatever they're better than me at. Strength is an easy one, but just walk up to them and be like, hey, would you like to back squat more weight? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, push your knees out. And they're like, okay.
And that goes to one of my favorite Coach Glassman questions that he would ask people. How's that working for you?
Yeah. How's that working out for you?
How's that working for you? Oh, well, it's great. I have 405. Okay, you don't want 415. You don't want 425.
How long have you been at 405?
Right. And how's that working for you is a great question to ask someone when it comes to their nutrition, but also their anywhere in life, assuming it's not your significant other, because that will cause a tremendous fight. So let's go to number 5. As a coach, you have to be willing to say, I don't know.
This one comes with confidence. But I'll give you guys a little insight. So when you go to the Naval Academy, I'll give you the answer to this. When you go to the Naval Academy.
Here we go. Division 1.
Yep. No, the Naval Academy isn't. It is Division 1, but it has nothing to do with sports. When you show up there for what is called I-Day or Indoctrination Day, shortened Indoc. You're given when you show up and they shave your head and they give you your bag full of shit you're not sure what it is, and they tell you in no uncertain terms, you now only have 5 responses that you can give, and those are the only words that you get to use until we tell you otherwise.
What are they? What are the 5 words?
So it's like, sir, yes, sir. Well, it's phrases, right? So like you only have these. So it's like, sir, yes, sir. Sir, no, sir. Sir, I'll find out, sir. Or and then what is the other? I forgot some of the other ones. But that's the one that stuck with me forever. Is rather than bullshit, is just say, I'll find out. Right. So if you're uncomfortable saying I don't know, then just say, I'll find out. I will get you an answer. And then go find the answer.
Yeah, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but I've heard numerous times like the smartest people are willing to say, I don't know. And I think it's beyond just intelligence. I think it is ego. You have to have a strong ego to be a master at your craft, be it a level 3, level 4 coach, and be willing to say, I don't know. Let me find that out and come back with that solution. But think about it from the athlete perspective. If someone says, hey, Jay, what's the best way I can improve these chest to bar pull-ups? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me do some research. And then I come back a day, 2 days, 3 days later with an answer. Yeah. What is that telling my athlete? Oh shit, this dude cares.
Yeah, you're not you're not obligated to know the answer. You're obligated to find a solution.
And you and I probably both experienced this at seminars where Q&A comes up at the end of one of the lectures. Nutrition's a great one. Like, how does this get impacted by the Krebs cycle? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. I can tell you eat vegetables. Yeah, let me look that up for you. Let's talk about it after, etc. So, again, dealing with imposter syndrome, be willing to say, I don't know. Last thing, and I'd be anxious to hear if you have anything to add to it. This was just my list. And this one kind of came from, I got to give him a little bit of a shout out, Jersey Tony in my coaches group. I tweaked it a little bit, but the way I finished this was don't tie your ego to their attitude. In other words, don't let your ego and your belief in yourself be impacted by someone else's shitty attitude. We've all experienced it. Fern, you've given lectures at level 1s where you have one person out of 50 looking like they don't care, looking like they're bored, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. First of all, many times that's not the case. Maybe they just had a shitty night's sleep. Maybe they have a newborn. Maybe they're stressed about something. Maybe that's their way of looking like they're really
maybe they're just like me and they have a resting dick face. Like maybe that's just the way that God made them.
RDF, right? We've all been there. And then all of a sudden your lecture takes a downturn because you're like, no one cares. Meanwhile, you've got 49 people, eyes wide open, hanging on every word. Same here. If you're doing everything we've talked about, remembering you know more, knowing you don't have to be fitter, working on your weaknesses, doing it for the right reasons, and saying I don't know, and they still have a shitty attitude, that's on them. That's not on you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I can't let somebody else dictate my energy, if you will, and there's nothing wrong with that, and figure out how to solve that problem for them. Like don't necessarily turn away from it and just ignore it. Is there something that you could do? Could you dig in a little bit more on that person and like find out, go with the Chuck Carswell, like ask one more question, be like, hey, it looks like you're bored. Like, are you? Because if you are, then I need to do a better job. And they're like, no, I'm totally into this. I'm like, okay, you just got a weird look on your face. And they're like, oh, it's my face. I'm like, okay, cool. Now we're on the same page. It's fine.
Yeah, my partner's got resting dick face too. I'm used to it.
Yeah, it's just like whatever. People think I'm angry all the time, but I'm not.
Well, and I think,
yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if you're dealing with this, first of all, I hope that list helped. But and I'd be anxious to hear if you have other things that have worked for you. For the listeners, hit us up. But what I would also tell you, kind of like you're alluding to, is communication is key for everything in life. I think, people ask both of us how we deal with one another, how we've grown this successful business, how we talk this often. And I think it's because we communicate well with each other. And part of that is being willing to have tough conversations, being willing to put your ego aside, being willing to apologize, all of these things. It comes down to, hey, if you're truly feeling this way, and chances are it's one or a handful of people at your box making you feel that way, pull them aside. What can I do to be a better coach for you? What do you want from me? Some people may just be like, look, I come in here and I just like to do my own thing because this is my downtime. This is my time away from anything else. You're a great coach. Don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Right?
I would only add one thing
to this list.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7. All right, I'll write it down.
Number 7.
What do you got?
Practice.
Ooh, what do you mean by that?
We could replace imposter syndrome with unpreparedness.
I would challenge you there in that imposter syndrome is a feeling.
Right now,
right?
but I guess why do I have this feeling is the question, right? And what I would argue, and so this is not the sole one, right?
No, I get
So
where you're going. Yeah.
it's one of seven, and you at a bare minimum will reduce this feeling of imposter syndrome by practicing your skill set. So imposter syndrome starts to creep in when I'm unsure of what it is that I'm doing. The way you stop feeling unsure is you practice and you practice and you practice and you practice until that anxiety turns to confidence. And most people severely underestimate the amount of practice that it takes to rid yourself of imposter syndrome. The amount of mistakes that I need to make before I feel confident, I don't know what it is, but it's a lot. Like, how many lectures did you give to yourself prior to walking through up on and giving your first lecture? Like, how many times did you give that? Like, and I don't mean like full whiteboard practice, but like, did you sit in your car and work through a phrase, or like as you're walking the dog, you're talking it through and then you do only portion of it on the whiteboard? I don't know, but my guess is it was a lot.
Like Todd Woodman says, what do you say, 17 times before you show up to do it? Yeah, and you know, you bring up a great point though, because there are times where I felt like my lectures didn't go as well. And most often those times where I didn't practice enough during the week. And that could have been a lecture I'd given 100 times, right? If, you know, I haven't worked a seminar in a bit, I'm going to work in April. Whatever lecture I get, I'm going to practice numerous times because I don't want to show up feeling like I'm not prepared. I love it. You know, I would push back in two areas. I would push back in the sense that a lot of the people we're dealing with, or not dealing with, but referring to or asking us about imposter syndrome, just haven't had the opportunity to practice. So you just come back.
I don't accept that.
But say you just go get your level 1 on Saturday and Sunday, and your coach or the box owner throws you in Monday. You could only be so prepared.
Okay, I'll give you that you could only be so prepared. But did you put in everything that you possibly could do in order to be prepared, or did we just lay down and say, well, there's no way I'm going to be prepared by Monday? Like, if you didn't check every single box, if you didn't write a lesson plan, if you didn't get on the Google machine and get on YouTube and look through every possible progression prior to showing up to that class, then you're unprepared, right? And that unprepared and sometimes, like, it's okay to have imposter syndrome. Like, if you're not prepared, having imposter syndrome, or what that feeling looks like, is not unwarranted. And it's also not forever. So that's where the practice comes in, is like, yes, you could be, are you fully prepared? No. But did you put in enough reps that you feel at least confident in this 1 to 2 things and be like, hey, this is as good as it's possibly going to get based on the time that was allotted? Like, do I have a long way to go? Absolutely.
No, I agree. I think there's a difference between, like, I've practiced so much that no matter what, versus did you do your best? You took your level 1 this weekend, your coach is throwing you in for the 5 a.m. I would say, did you study before your level 1? Did you pay attention? Did you take explicit notes? When you got home, did you look at the workout for tomorrow and make a lesson? Yes. So there could always be more practice. So
that's where I'm going with that is,
did you do your best?
You have control over a lot of those things. And if we rewind the clock, there's a lot of things that were mixed in there that we didn't necessarily get. And that's where I'm going with that. And that's not to, like, you know, like, poke anybody in the eye, but the point is, it's just like, practice your skill set, practice your craft, practice saying it in an empty room, practice coaching to med ball cleans. And this is, we've talked about it before, like, you should set up a room of inanimate objects and you should coach them, give them all names, like, whatever, make it up.
Oh, I used to do that when I was getting ready. I had index cards with names.
Yeah, you should do all of that. You should be like, all right, hey, Mr. Chair, all right, you know, hey, sock over there, push your knees out. Like, that is how you work through all of that anxiety and all of these thoughts and all of these things. Is like, you got to practice. Practice is how you become masterful at anything. And so figure out, okay, what am I going to practice? Am I going to practice giving the whiteboard brief? Am I going to practice, you know, just making sure that we start the workout on time? Does that have a lesson plan? Like, you don't have to practice everything. Practice the most important thing, which is like, the most anxiety you're probably going to have as a coach is stepping up to the whiteboard. Practice your whiteboard brief. After that, you can just kind of just like bounce around like a goofball and like make sure that we start the workout on time and make sure that everybody moves safely. And that would be considered a success in some scenarios. So control what you can control. Put in the effort on the one thing that's going to make an impact, which is like, we talked about this the other day, just like group management. And then like, if that's you, practice your whiteboard brief, knock people's socks off with that whiteboard brief. Go back to our first episode ever, listen to the whiteboard brief, make sure that you hit those 3 big ticket items. What's the workout? What's a stimulus? What are your scaling options? And then just crush that, so, and then revisit it. And then what's the next thing? I'm going to master the next thing. Write a lesson plan. Like, how can I get through like a cool general warm-up that's fun, cool, and then be like, all right, I don't really know how to teach a snatch, but just make sure nobody kills themselves. Like, right, that.
And I would say, throw on top of that, understand it's going to be cyclical. I haven't coached in a month. I go back next week. I might feel a little bit of that, but I agree with you. By practicing, you'll overcome that, and in time, you'll feel better about it. Here's a great example. I'm sure you've witnessed it. You've been at seminars where like Nicole shows up, Dave shows up, Coach Glassman shows up back in the day, and you're like, please don't watch this. Like, please don't watch my lecture. Please don't watch my breakout group. Please don't watch anything. Nowadays, I'd be like, fucking show up and watch this. We're going to knock your socks off. And that just
but again,
comes from
goes back
confidence.
It goes back, but that confidence is developed from practice, right? You have to practice. And I've talked about this before, and this has nothing to do with like my skill set. But I've shot so many basketballs at this point.
Here we go.
Whether they went in or not, right? The point is, I've shot so many basketballs. If you put a basketball in my hand, like at no point do I feel that is weird. At some point, you're going to coach so many reps of the air squat. You're going to coach so many classes. You're going to give so much feedback that it's just second nature at this point. That's what you're trying. That's kind of like the 10,000 hours thing where it becomes that unconscious competence. That's what you should be moving towards at all times in whatever that skill set. And then when you master that, then you move to the next skill set, right? That's it. But it starts with practice. You got to get the first rep, and then you got to get the second rep. And then eventually you're on 1 million.
10,000 hours, right? I think about that often in some hobbies and activities that I'm not great at, jiu-jitsu, guitar, everything. And I'm like, well, I haven't put in the time. I haven't put in the practice, but where I have is coaching. And that's why I have the confidence there. But
intentional, right? And I think that was I don't know if that was left out, but I think a lot of people serve back on that. It's not just 10,000 like flippant hours. It's 10,000 intentional hours.
Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Meaning,
did you make that up?
Yes.
That's really good. We should write that down. We should make like a poster. Maybe we should start a company where we put catchy phrases on paintings.
I can't tell if you're being serious right now.
I'm definitely not being serious. I also couldn't tell if you were being serious when you told me that Bill Belichick coaches baseball. So.
But do you think I made that up? And if you don't think I made it up, was it at least good?
No, I definitely know you didn't make that up. It is good, but it has nothing to do with you.
Okay, well, fair enough. But I think the point is, and people hear that and they're like, oh, I got to be perfect. It's like, no, but maybe not perfect practice, but intentional practice. In other words, shooting shitty basketball shots for an hour doesn't do anything because you're going to just reinforce shooting shitty basketball shots. But
so there's even counter arguments to that, which is just like get your reps in. And even if they were not perfect, like two of the top 3 greatest shooters of all time in the NBA.
Michael Jordan.
Nope. We could go with Reggie Miller. We could go with Larry Bird, and I would now throw Steph Curry in there as well. So those are probably the 3.
Who's she? She's good?
No. Those are probably the 3 people. Like if you put a basketball in their hands and you leave them open, it's going in, right? Now, if you watch all 3 of them shoot, I would say of the 3, by far, Steph Curry has the best form. But if you watch Larry Bird and Reggie Miller shoot, it's not great. However, they shot more than anybody, which you can even work around that if it's not perfect, is just by get your reps in. Get your reps in, and you will slowly start to work things out. And maybe you have a unique skill set, or you have a unique flavor, you have a unique kind of tone and stuff like that. But you can't circumvent you got to get your reps in and you got to practice.
I'd agree with you. I guess my point would be, hey, if someone's able to make you better, you would be silly for not trying. In other words, if I squat with my knees in and above parallel, is it getting me better at squatting? Probably, but
Yeah,
not
and that's-
better than.
No,
not
we're
better
saying the
than if
same
I-
thing, which is like it doesn't need to be perfect. Like you just need to practice.
But yeah, and you need to be intentional with that practice. So, like always, I spent some time, came up with this nice list of 6 things. You come in, hijack it, add a 7th, and think you created it all.
Practice.
But sincerely, we hope that if you're listening to this, because this is a question we get asked often, and I hope that helps, because I think it's important. If you're listening, here's the other thing. If you're listening to this, understand one very important thing. You care. There's hundreds of thousands of level 1 trainers these days. Something in, right, Fern? Like hundreds of thousands.
I think there's I'm pretty confident that this is accurate, that there is for sure over 150,000.
Right. On the best, if we're having a great week and we got 10,000 downloads on an episode, that's not even 10%. So understand, you fall into the top 5 or 10% of CrossFit trainers that are actually trying to improve themselves. And so long as you're trying to improve yourself, you shouldn't feel that you're not giving your best. You shouldn't feel like an imposter, because it goes back to leading by example. You're doing your best, and you don't have to be braggadocious. You don't have to tell your members, because it will be so obvious. Man, when this girl or gal or guy shows up to coach, they fucking care.
Right.
And like Coach Glassman said, how do you run a successful affiliate? Care, 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 care. So
it's the one thing that all CrossFitters recognize: effort.
That's it. So I don't care whether you're the fittest, you're not the fittest, you're new, or you're a veteran. Show up, care, follow those 7 steps, and hopefully that'll help you overcome imposter syndrome. All right, Fern?
I'm glad I was able to wrap that up for you and really clean that up.
You tied a bow on it for sure. You cleaned up my mess as always.
For sure.
So you never miss an episode of the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel and on all major podcasting platforms at Best Hour of Their Day. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of the best hour of our day. See you next time.